All right. All right. All right. All right. We are live. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Obviously, you know how this goes. We sit around and talk about nonsense for about 5 minutes while everybody sort of rolls in. So, welcome to the late stream, everybody. Hopefully, everybody is doing fantastic. We have a ton to talk about today. Obviously, we have the election going on. So, that is going to be a topic for today. Just making sure everything's good. All right. If you guys want to go ahead and throw up where you're from, I always like to see where our live viewers are listening from, tuning in from, however you want to say it. I am going to retweet my live stream real fast, and then we will get right into it. All right. Illinois. Australia, Estonia, Australia again. We got two Aussies in here. Yeah, you guys. This is the late U.S. stream, but midday stream for you guys, right? Or early stream? Yes, kinda. Yes, no, maybe. Germany, Miami, New York, North Wales, Florida, California, Arizona. Awesome, awesome, guys. Well, welcome in, everybody. This is episode number 113 of the Calibrated Live show. I am, of course, the one, the only Scott. Not particularly great at anything, a master of all jack trades, good at none of them. Can't even speak in proper sentences, so that's what we got going on. 2 a.m. in UK, homie. Thank you for tuning in at 2 a.m. You are more than welcome to go to sleep, by the way. An Algerian in Moscow. Welcome, everybody in. The title of today's live stream, as you can tell, is A New Reality. And I think that everybody can kind of agree that we are stepping into a new reality with the hegemon of the world gaining a new president. You've heard me say multiple times in the past that I don't really think that the presidential election changes a whole lot. This one might be slightly different, but I don't think U.S. foreign policy is going to change all that much. And I don't expect a lot of these conflicts that we're seeing necessarily to come to an end immediately now that Trump has won the presidency of the United States. There's a whole number of intertwining, it's like an entanglement of foreign policy issues, right? And a president coming in has to make very specific decisions about how he's going to handle the mess that the previous administration left for them. Sometimes you come into the presidency of the United States with a great economy and no active wars and things are going great. Other times you come in with a potential war in the Middle East, a war in Europe, and an economy that is struggling tremendously. So in this first 100 days, for all of you that don't know about U.S. politics, the first 100 days, this first 6 months or so of a new presidential administration is usually the most productive. So expect to see a lot happen in those first 100 days. After that time period, senators and congressmen start getting ready for the 2026 midterms, which I know sounds really goofy, but our government really only works when people aren't campaigning. And when they start campaigning, they have their own interests and their own constituencies that they play to instead of, the Republican Party or the Democrat Party or something like that. So expect a lot of change immediately. And then, as we get into 2025, 2026, expect all of that to kind of slow down from the United States in terms of things changing. So, support for Ukraine, the situation with Israel, how we are acting towards China, all of that is going to be disrupted now. So, as soon as he gets inaugurated, I don't know if it's going to happen before then, but as soon as he gets into that office, that is when things are going to immediately start changing, and then it'll stabilize and slow down a little later on. I guess we can start with Ukraine. Trump has very enthusiastically come out and said that he is going to end the Ukraine conflict in 24 hours or whatever. I don't necessarily think that's true. I don't know how this is going to work necessarily. If you look at Trump's team that he's bringing in, there are still the same. There are some of the same players in the background. So in terms of support towards Ukraine, I don't necessarily think we're going to see it just end. I do think that Trump is going to put a lot more pressure on Europe to take over for the United States, because this is not the United States' project anymore, right? We started it. The Biden administration, particularly the Obama coalition, started the Ukraine project, and it's not Trump's baby. So why should he deal with the consequences of their failed endeavors? So he's going to change his policy focus towards Ukraine. I don't necessarily think the Ukraine war is going to stop. I just think that it's already going so bad for Ukraine, and it's just going to accelerate those issues. Europe is going to try to do everything that they can to keep Ukraine in the fight for as long as possible, but there's really no replacing the U.S. in terms of the financial and military support that Ukraine receives. So we're already looking at a very tenuous situation. Zelensky, leading up to this election, was very enthusiastic about the Biden or Obama coalition. The Kamala Harris campaign. They were hoping that she was going to win because their reputation is tied to Ukraine, right? Whereas Trump has no reputation in Ukraine. It's not his project, like I was talking about. And if he resolves it, it's going to make him look very good. So that's sort of what we're looking at there. Now, people are talking about there being an immediate ceasefire. I don't know what these people are smoking. If you've listened to the Russians at all, people seem to think that the U.S. can just make decisions now. They're just going to say, okay, we're done. It's over. We're going to end it. That's not how these things work. Trump can come in and he can say, we're going to slow down support, this, that, or the other. But the Russians have to come to the negotiating table and agree, right? Zelensky has to be willing to go to the negotiating table. And if not, you have to replace him. Is he going to be willing to go to the negotiating table with the Russians? I don't know, because the reality of the situation for Zelensky is that if he goes to that table, he is going to be basically surrendering. It's going to appear to everybody as a capitulation, right? There is no position of strength to negotiate from. There is no real good way for Zelensky to get out of this without it looking like the Russians are just outright winning, right? You're not going to see a Minsk. There's not going to be a ceasefire. If there's going to be an ending to this conflict, it is going to be a complete resolution, right? That's what the Russians have said. They've already been fooled by Minsk 1, Minsk 2, Istanbul, the Black Sea grain deal. Every possible scenario of the Russians being led by the nose we have seen over the last decade. They're not going to let that happen again. And the way I look at it is I don't see this as a negotiable conflict anymore. I think that the Russians are going to have to end this militarily. They're going to have to take a very large chunk of Ukraine so that this can never happen again, just based off of Ukraine's population and economy. And that's how this is going to have to go. And I've said for a long time, I think that the river makes the perfect line. But no, I do not foresee the new president of the United States coming in and ending this conflict immediately. I think we're much, much too far past that. I think the damage has been done in terms of relations. And we might see Trump end the conflict eventually. But as of right now, the Ukrainians appear to be continuing with their fortifications of the Dnipropetrovsk region, back behind Donetsk and stuff like that. So I don't foresee a negotiated settlement just appearing out of nowhere, right? All three sides have to agree, and I doubt that that's going to happen. Now, we can move over to Israel and the Middle East. So, about 12 hours, 16 hours maybe before the election was sort of obvious as to who had won, I had a pretty good idea that Trump was going to win. If anybody was paying attention, the Israeli president, Benjamin Netanyahu, removed his defense minister roughly 12 to 16 hours before the election results started to come in. In my personal opinion, I think Israeli intelligence basically knew that Trump had won, that it was going to be very clear that he had won. I think a lot of people knew that Trump was going to win just based off of the the lower turnout of mail-in voters for the Democrat Party. The Democrats have to win our elections early, right? That's how the Democrats win. And then the election day is usually a very strong Republican day. So Republicans usually tend to go out and vote in person, whereas the Democrats will vote majority mail-in. So Kamala Harris had much less mail-in votes than Biden did the previous 4 years. And Trump had about the same as he did against Biden. So she just underperformed. Trump performed basically how he normally does. And I'm almost positive that the Israeli intelligence services also knew this, and they immediately started making cabinet shifts based off of the new administration that's coming in. It was very telling that this happened on election day. The second it happened, I knew that this was the Biden administration's kind of guy in the Israeli military, in the Israeli political scene. So once he was removed, I was 95% sure that Trump had won the election. That being said, it doesn't necessarily mean that, but as we've come to see, Trump did win the election, and I believe that the Israelis are now going to become hyper aggressive in the Middle East. They have nothing holding them back anymore. We will see how Trump approaches the situation. I would love it if he, threatened Bibi, forced a resolution to the issue. I just don't see that happening. I think that Israel is now going to probably do some sort of preemptive strike against Iran, and then that is going to escalate into a regional conflict. Like I've been saying the entire time, there's sort of a split between the Biden administration and the Israeli government on how to proceed with things. Obviously, the Biden administration was trying to keep everything together up until the elections. That's passed, and now Benjamin Netanyahu can act however he sees fit, right? And he's not going to have elections. That he needs the war to continue, and I don't see any change for the better coming from the Trump administration towards Israel. I expect more of the same. Hopefully, through diplomacy, a war can be avoided with Iran. We'll see how that works out. But tensions are high, and I don't expect the Israelis to back down from this in any sense of the word. The only other really big shift we'll see from this election is potentially the sort of the letting go of this obsession with regime change in Russia, the overall obsession with Russia and the Russophobia. I think we might see that dial way, way, way back now that Trump is in the White House. I think we're going to see the media narrative shift towards Putin and towards Russia and almost become like a non-topic because the Ukraine war is going very bad, right? They're just going to memory hole it like they did with Afghanistan, like they've done with everything else, because that's just a better way of handling the situation, right? Just if everybody's just going to forget about it and forget about all that money and all the people who died, why bring it up, right? So that's what I believe is going to happen, and all that focus is now going to shift towards China. So over the next 4 years, I think you're going to start to see the same sort of thing you saw with the sort of the Russophobia, not Russophobia, but just the racism towards the Russians, and sort of the hatred towards them, kind of unwarranted, really, for any good, solid reason, by Americans at least. It's not the Cold War, it's not 1960. So that's sort of an antiquated thing for Americans to think about, even have ideas about, hating Russians. It doesn't make any sense. That's now going to shift to China. And I expect that Trump is going to start enacting very tough economic policies against China. And I believe that we will slowly sort of enter into an economic trade war with China. So that's really the only other big change I see coming from this administration. I thought that the Biden administration should have turned to China in 2022. They chose to focus on Russia for some unknown reason, and now they are very, very behind. China now has a secured energy alliance with Russia, basically. Nothing really worked out the way it was supposed to. And now the United States is behind. We're going to transition to focus on China, but China's prepared, China's ready, and China knows what's coming. So, I think that's all I have to talk about with the election. I am going to take us over to the map now. So, let's go ahead and do that. Before we do that, actually, I hope everybody is doing fantastic this fine evening. Remember, guys, please leave a like, a comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. We are growing, and I still want to hit that 30,000 subscriber goal. That's still my long-term goal. I was hoping for it in October, but it comes and goes. It comes in waves. So if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Please thumbs up the video. And if you want to find my other work, you can go and find my Patreon, my Telegram, and my Twitter. And guys, for all of my Patreon subscribers, the new bro chat is coming this week. We finally nailed down a time to get it done. So that is going to be uploaded this week. Thank you so much. And let's go ahead and move into the map. Okay. So, starting up in the Kupiansk area. Okay. So, actually, I did not have time to do this update, but I will actually do it right now so you guys can just see what's going on here. And this is not exact. This is very much subject to change because I don't have the map directly in front of me. But from what I can tell, the village of Kalibrated right here has come under Russian control, something like this. Something like that. So, Kalibrated has come under Russian control. The Russians are continuing to advance, putting more pressure on this salient as a whole. Remember, the Russians are very close to capturing Petropavlivka. Once that happens, this entire salient becomes nearly impossible for the Ukrainians to hold. And I still really don't understand why they are on this side of the river. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get this refusal to retreat in areas that are not benefiting you militarily anymore. The calculus now. There's no more. There's none of this illusion, this imaginary victory. None of the Ukrainian generals believe this anymore. It's not real. We are in 1944. The Germans are retreating. All of the generals know exactly what's going on. Nobody believes the nonsense. 1991 borders is gone. All of that is just right. And with Trump coming in, even more. It's just gone. So holding on to areas that have no strategic importance, like this area right here, make no sense. You're just sacrificing men that you don't have for objectives that you're never going to achieve in territory that's completely meaningless, right? Back out behind the river and hold this line and focus all of your defense on this area to protect Liman and everything in this area. I really don't get why they are still incessant on holding like this area of the Luhansk Oblast. Like, this is doing nothing for the Ukrainians, but they are not going to let it go. They just absolutely refuse. So, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's just increasing the overall attrition of the Ukrainian army that is already stretched so thin that the southern front line is just in complete free fall. So makes no sense, but the Russians are improving their positions here. Again, not very strong offensive operations by the Russians in this region. They're just advancing where the Ukrainians are weak and have little presence. All right, a frontline update here in the Seversk area. Russian forces have advanced, and ooh, look at this. A mistake on my map. A mistake, you say? Boom. Sorry, guys. I have like OCD, and if this isn't fixed, I will put my fist through the computer. Okay, so here, just south of Verkhana Omansky, the Russian forces have just made a small advance through the Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast, and have more or less they have leveled the front in this area. Again, the pressure on this area just right out here in front of Seversk is increasing greatly. The Russians should be soon able to push into Seversk itself. All right, down here, just south of Chasiv Yar, in Stepochki, the Russian armed forces have advanced onto this high ground right here. Again, this area is critical for the Ukrainians. Any movement here by the Russians is an extreme net negative for the AFU, and the Russians moving into this forested area and onto this hill and Terekon sort of area right here is very, very bad. Once they control a majority of this area right here outside of Stepochki, they will control this entire area down here all the way to Toretsk. I'm actually going to take us over to the topographical map, and I will show you that just so you guys can get an idea of what is going on. Oh, and we have a question. All big claims from Russians, but yet such slow process. Chasiv Yar and Kupiansk are well overdue. Why so slow progress? Because there's a Ukrainian army standing in the way in very strong defensive fortifications. If you decide to charge at these lines with a bunch of men trying to make that progress quick, you are really not going to increase the speed of progress. What you are going to do is increase your casualties. And when you're fighting a long attrition war against a much smaller, much weaker adversary that has a manpower capabilities, right? They have the ability to produce manpower and put it into the front line. Not so much anymore, but over the last 2.5 years, that's what we've seen. If you just go at that and try to get that quick progress, it comes at a tremendous cost that really doesn't make any of that progress worth it. What the Russians are doing right now is relying on their extreme firepower advantage to just destroy the Ukrainians in their positions. And then once those positions are destroyed and the Ukrainians are destroyed, the Russians move into those positions and capture them. So the slow progress is not really progress at all. Don't pay attention to the progress. I mean, now you can because the lines are moving quicker, but progress is just one stat that you have to look at when judging the overall picture of this conflict, right? If the Russians wanted territory, they would be fighting in a much different manner. The fact that they are fighting only in the eastern part of the country, allowing the Ukrainians to come to them, the longest logistics lines, picking stuff off along the way. Once the Ukrainians get to them, they destroy them with their overwhelming firepower. Once there are no more Ukrainians, or AFU, I guess, Ukrainian military in the way, they will then gain all that territory with much greater ease and with much lower casualties. So that's why you're seeing quote-unquote slow progress. It's because the Russians aren't worried about progress. right? Progress will come when there's no enemy standing in your way. Think about it like a chessboard, right? You take out all the pawns, you take out a rook, you take out a bishop over here. It's just the queen and the king, and they can't cover the whole board anymore, right? So you can then, the chessboard is just open and you can maneuver all around it. But if you try to attack the king straight on, head on, and try to gain all that territory, you'll lose important pieces unnecessarily, even if you have an advantage. Wow, that was a good analogy or metaphor. Holy cow. All right. Two small updates here. This is just a confirmation of a purple area, which is an unconfirmed Russian control. In here, we now have a geolocation of Russian forces in this tree line. So this has been confirmed. And just a small frontline update over here. Nothing major. Moving down here, the Russian forces continue to advance north of Kharkov, but not as aggressively. They're not trying to push up here as aggressively as they are down here. They're really pushing out the south and having some tremendous success down here. So just south of Maximiliankov here, we have a Russian advance through these fields, capturing just a sort of a little salient area, nothing major, but again, 5 square kilometers that was captured basically for nothing. So another Russian advance that, kind of goes unnoticed. I didn't even post this one because it's like unimportant to me, really. I don't usually post frontline levelings. So like this one, like I didn't post this. This is pointless to post. If you want to come and see the map, you can see the map and see the changes, but I'm not going to update that. Same goes for this edition here, but I will talk about it in the live stream because it is a map change. Okay. All right. Here in Antonivka, Russian forces have now captured a majority of the village and have begun assaults into this fortification here. Remember, I talked about this Russian advance into Chudove over here, getting really close to this sort of crossroads. This is a major logistics route, just like an intersection right here for this string of settlements. So with the Russians closing in on this area, supply and rotation into this area are unlikely and difficult. And I would expect the Russians to really sort of close up everything east of this road outside of Kharkov very quick. So from like here, I'll do a little line from like here to here. I expect that to close up pretty fast here because it's just not sustainable for the Ukrainians to hold it. But with this advance, with the capture of this fortification, the Russians will then be poised to begin operations towards this small settlement right here of Dalneje, and then forward onto Kharkov down here from the south. So Kharkov is going to be in an immense amount of pressure, likely by November 20th time period, I would say, is what I'm thinking. And then I think that Kharkov is going to fall rather quickly. So, but we never know. The Ukrainians have a tremendous ability to hold places for much longer than they should. All right, in between Chardove and Yetzelzativka, the Russian forces have just advanced the front line through some of these fields and tree lines and have approached this large sort of forestry area right here. I'm sure the Ukrainians have defensive positions in here that I don't know about, can't see, but the leaves are falling off of the trees, so areas like this offer much, much less protection to the Ukrainian forces defending it than they previously did in the summer. All right, over here in between Cherdove and Maximivka, the Russian forces have again advanced, sort of leveling out the front line. You're going to kind of see this trend continue here, but this is getting to the extent of the Ugledar success. So this right here is what was so important about Ugledar, if you guys were wondering. This right here, all of this was because of the capture of Ugledar, basically. Not all of this, obviously, but something of this nature right there. So in a month, the Russians have pushed out and captured all of that because of the capture of Ugledar. So that's why it was so important. That's why everybody talked about it for so long, because it's such a it was such a pivotal piece of the defense of the South for the Ukrainian armed forces. And now Kharkov right here is the new Ugledar. It is now the corner pocket of the entire southern front, right? It is the new Ugledar, but this one is not going to hold as well as this one did, as the Russians have already compromised it from the north. So, and then over here, just west of Zolota Nyava, towards in the direction of Velika Novosilka, the Russian armed forces have advanced along this river here and have captured some more fields. I suspect they are going to head towards Rozdolone and cut the main artery for logistics into Velika Novosilka from the north, and then push down here into Novry Komora, and basically cut all logistics into Velika Novosilka, and then force a Ukrainian retreat through these fields up towards these settlements over here. So I think that is the overall goal. Capture Velika Novosilka, gain access to all of the roads in and around it, and then from there expand out, push towards Holyai-Polye, push towards Andrivka, collapse Kharkov, and then focus on Pokrovsk. So yeah, that is our map updates for today, everybody. I hope you had fun with those. You know what? I'm kind of done. There's not a lot to talk about. It's been very slow news because of the election. So if you guys have some questions, I'll hang out for a little bit and talk, but I am done with everything that I had to talk about. So. Do you think Trump has called Putin yet? I don't know. That is one of the first calls I would make if I were him. But I don't expect the war to end right away. So, I mean, whether he calls him or not, I don't think it really matters. Do the Russians have a car truck company like Ford? Yes, they do. Well, Lada, first off, is a Russian car company. But they make all of their own vehicles pretty much. So. Does the new U.S. leadership fully understand that Russia is likely to cease its actions until it secures the necessary guarantees for its own security? What are the anticipated next steps for new U.S. leadership? Let me think about that. I think that the new administration coming in pretty much fully understands the situation. I think a lot of the issue is the complete inability for this current administration to negotiate at all. If you just open up lines of communication, the Russians don't want to keep fighting a war that they don't have to fight, right? If they get a good deal, end it, they likely will. But that deal is going to come at the cost of Ukraine and probably at the cost of Europe. So again, the U.S. can want to do all of these things, can want to, end the conflict. But as you say right now, Russia is a part of this negotiation, right? They have to accept the terms of the deal. They have to say, okay, that makes sense. We're going to let it happen. Zelensky also has to come to the table and say, okay, I'm ready to negotiate with the Russians, even though I made it illegal and I said I would never do it in 1991 borders, and I'm going to be crucified for this. You have so many variables at play, so many people who are overinvested, people whose lives are literally on the line with this project. So we'll see. I don't have high hopes for it ending. I think that the Russians are going to have to achieve their aims militarily. And I think that's just the reality of the situation. What are the anticipated next steps for new U.S. leadership? The first and foremost would be establishing open relations with the nation that you are trying to achieve that with. If the Trump administration deems that it is necessary to reopen trade with Russia, not necessarily trade, but just dialogue, get back on the phone with them and solve this. I would say that that's primarily the first steps, but I also don't have all of the intelligence in front of me. I don't know what the U.S. is looking at. I don't know what the equation is for the U.S. They might not be able to walk away from Ukraine just because of the geostrategic implications of the Russian sphere of influence growing in Europe, right? That could be a major red flag for the Trump administration. I just don't know. And so we'll have to see how they approach it. Wasn't Jim saying vote for Kamala? I like how also you think bald jokes are going to get to me. Yeah, dude. That's how you're going to get me, was with a bald joke. As if I don't shave my head every day. As if I haven't said all of these things to myself 6 inches from the mirror every morning. You're bald. You're bald and ugly. That's what I say to myself every morning. So good luck getting under my skin. Let's see. Any more questions, everybody? Thank you for your question, by the way, MD or MT. Let's see. Late to the show. Greetings from Germany. Hello from the United States, whose government is in a legitimate meltdown at the moment. Yeah, I saw you guys. It's really not a big deal. I mean, for Germany, it might be because you blew up your own fucking pipeline or you let somebody blow up your pipeline to support Ukraine, and that is going to be hard to remedy that situation. But really, you should just go along with it and not. I don't understand the whole meltdown thing. Again, Europe has put themselves into a very bad situation with going along with this Ukraine project, separating themselves from cheap Russian energy, isolating themselves internationally, honestly, and being forced to rely on U.S. energy for their needs, which we can't reach that in an economic way. Yeah, I think that the German government has a way out of this. They're just refusing to take that way out because for some reason, whatever this, I say liberals, but I know in Europe it's different. But United States liberals, right, is sort of how I think about some of the German government, the Green Party and stuff like that. They will never learn from their mistakes. They will never learn lessons from, losses and defeats. They're just going to keep doubling down. This is what you saw with the Biden administration. It's why I'm very happy that the Kamala administration is out, because we are getting to the point of the doubling down becoming extremely risky and dangerous. So I hope that ends with the Trump administration, but we'll see. But yeah, Germany is in a position where they need to switch their whole government, basically. And I think, unfortunately, for most of Europe, we're going to start to see right movements, get into power. And I don't necessarily think that's going to be the easiest transition. And I don't necessarily think it's going to be the strongest thing for Europe. But your current governments are failing you horribly. So something's going to have to change. It is interesting times, to say the least, my good man. Here we go. How's quitting weed going? Taking a break myself. Good luck. So now I took 2 weeks off, which was awesome. It showed me how I was self-medicating myself with it, just because, I like it. And I have a super addictive personality. Like, I don't get addicted to things, but I will not stop doing stuff if it's right in front of me. Like, if I have a jug of water, like a gallon of water, I'll drink that gallon of water in like an hour. Like, it's just in front of me. It's like habitual. I just have to do it. Same with smoking. Like, I don't vape ever, but my girlfriend has vapes sometimes, and the nicotine, I like it. So I'll hit the vape, and I never get addicted to the vape, but if it's in front of me, I'm going to do it. Same goes for weed. I'll just smoke just because it's there, right? So as soon as it was away from me, I was fine without it. But now I'm managing it a little bit better. I only use it now when I go to bed for sleep. So it's going good, and I'm saving a bunch of money. So that's also nice. I hope that your tolerance break goes as fantastic as mine. I didn't sleep for like 4 days straight when I started doing it. So, can't understand one thing. Ukraine daily cries about lack of ammunition, daily beg for it. They say they have nothing left. Then how come Ukraine have enough ammunition to hold the front line? They don't actually. If you watch a lot of these videos, there's not a. If you watch Russian assaults, there's very little artillery fire coming back. There's a reason why the Russians are advancing, right? The reason why you're seeing all of this down here, all of this happening, is because the Ukrainians have no stable artillery positions and very little artillery ammo to fire at the Russians. Really, the only thing that's keeping the Ukrainian lines together is FPV drone operators, right? And a lot of those crews have died. A lot of those crews have been turned into infantry because the Ukrainians are so low on manpower. But FPVs is really the new artillery that prevents armies from moving forward. And that's why I talked about if the Russians are able to break through 5 kilometers and open everything up and create massive instability, FPV drone operations become much more difficult because those crews are constantly needing to move around, set up new bases of operation and stuff like that. So what we're seeing down here in the south is also much less successful Ukrainian FPV operations to hold back the Russians because there's so much instability in this area now, and the Ukrainians are constantly taking steps back and losing fortified and strong positions to fight with their drones from. So, thank you for your questions. Thank you, everybody. Okay, let's see. Germany is cooked. Yeah, they might be. I still think there's a way out for them. I just think that they have to distance themselves from the U.S. sphere of influence, and that's really scary for the U.S. because a Russian-German alliance would dominate the world, right? So, can Ukraine hold out until Kamala gets back in office? Kamala. Yeah, they only got like 4 years that they got to hold on. No, that the Ukrainians wouldn't hold on if Kamala got into office tomorrow. So, I like how there's just so many little arguments happening in here. Let's see. Any questions? Anybody? Do you see many TOS 1A vids? No, not a lot. We see them every now and then in some areas. They kind of bring them in to break a fortification up, a very strong Ukrainian position. They'll bring in the TOS. But I don't know how many the Russians have available. It's not TOS 1A anymore either. They had TOS 2, which was the wheeled version. But that version had a lot of issues. I can't remember I think it was the fire distance was the issue. The TOS 3 is back on a tank chassis with longer missiles now. So it is TOS 3. It's no longer TOS 1, but we do see them from time to time. No reason to quit weed because it's good. A day wasted is not a day a day not wasted is a day wasted. Yeah, it's true. Mr. Clean is a drug addict. I wouldn't say addict. I like to do drugs, and I am competitive, so I aggressively do everything to the max. I've never been addicted to anything. Weed keeps me off booze for nearly 30 years. Booze kills. Yeah, that's a fantastic reason to smoke weed. Yeah, I recommend anybody who has any alcoholic tendencies smoke some weed because you're much better high than you are drunk, and your liver will thank you. Calibrated, do you think the incel thing is a serious issue? If so, why do you think it's attracting so many young males in the West? Do I think the incel thing is an issue? What incel thing are you specifically referring to? Just the act of being an incel? Yeah, I think that that's a huge issue. I think that humans are social creatures. We should be in social situations. We are physical creatures. We should have physical partners. I think, obviously, I'm very like biologically driven in a lot of my analysis and thinking. So for me, the ultimate goal of any human being is to pass on their genetic material and extend their legacy in that way, right? Um, and that's our primary goal. So yeah, incel activity is bad for your overall mental health, I do believe. Sanctions removal is possible. You think mass production of Su-45, Su-57? Well, I don't think sanctions are preventing any production in Russia at all. I don't think sanctions work at all. I think that everything that the U.S. or that Russia needs from the West will be purchased and shipped through China, Kazakhstan, multiple other countries that aren't under sanctions that Russia enjoys open trade relations with. So I think the Russians are producing as many Su-57s as they want right now and as they need, and other aircraft and stuff like that. Uh, do, do, do. Let's see. Oh, Tyler. I put 1,400 on Polymarket for Trump. Here's some of the gains. Let's go, Tyler. I always applaud people when they hit a parlay or a bet or something like that. There's nothing better than winning a bet. And yeah, that was a safe way to place your money. I remember all the Democrats saying that the poly market didn't matter because it was just a gambling thing, and there were a few people who had put a bunch of money on Trump or whatever. And I was like, bullshit. If you've ever watched sports, that's not how favorites work. He was a favorite for a reason. Welcome in, Tyler. It's good to see you. Sorry, Scotty. That's always me trolling the trolls. That's all good, man. Go ahead. Russia has lost well over 700,000 troops. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. The Ukrainian government told me, bro. Do you read much? Do you have a favorite novel or book? Yes, I love. Well, I'm not a huge reader. I don't have the attention span to actually make it through a full book. Don't ask me why. But I love Tom Clancy. So any Tom Clancy fear or book. Red Storm Rising is one of my favorites. Not for its accuracy, but I just like those books. I like to read those books. Outside of that, sci-fi fantasy is always great. So there's a bunch of books that I like to read. Inner World was a pretty good one. My dad has like all of these sci-fi books from the 70s and 80s around the house. Or he used to have them around the house. He took them with him when he left. But they are, I read a bunch of those. So yeah, I do like reading. My brain is always going, and I'll be reading something. And while I'm reading something, I'll be reading and I'll think of something else while I'm reading, and I want to go do it. And I just will never finish a book. It's very frustrating, but I do like reading. Reports that Trump is already negotiating with Putin. Do you think he's asking Putin to limit his actions until inauguration? No. I think that they're just having a normal conversation like world leaders should have, right? The U.S. is actively funding a proxy war against a nuclear superpower. Yeah, maybe they should have a phone call. Negotiation, sure, maybe, but again, all sides have to agree. So Trump just can't say this is over, it's done, right? Russians have to agree, the Ukrainians have to agree, and Europe has to agree. Germany is in a recession. They have the 10th highest energy prices in the world. Their industry isn't competitive with prices that high. Volkswagen is closing, for fuck's sake. Yeah, it's not good. They fell on the sword just the same way the Ukrainians did. You are no good without a liver. You're no good without a liver, Barry. Coming at me just because I don't have a liver. You want to come at me like that? Wait. These aren't questions. You guys, questions. I need questions. I saw a video of a Ukrainian soldier who said if a treaty required them to withdraw from the Donbass, they would rebel. Do you think that could happen? I think that those guys want to go home. I don't think those guys are in any position to rebel against anything. I think that that is a nonsense statement. If they said, hey, you guys can go home today, I'm pretty sure all of them would be like, okay, we're going to go home. Scott, between the AFU retreat and Trump winning, I'm extremely concerned for actor Sean Penn's mental health. Yeah, I would be concerned too. I would be concerned for a bunch of the pro-Ukrainian commentators right now. They're going through it. It's bad. They really thought Trump was going to lose, and that's crazy to me. Will we see another pandemic during Trump's presidency? I think we're probably going to see a couple of different things during Trump's presidency, depending on how well he gets along with the intelligence agencies, with quote unquote the deep state. In my opinion, we'll see. Time will tell how he manages that relationship. I don't necessarily know if the pandemic was. I don't know who caused it necessarily. So I don't know if it was, it happened under his thing because of that. But I definitely think we'll see some stonewalling of his administration by some of the more establishment actors. I dislike Trump. Well, that's okay. You can dislike Trump. That's the amazing thing about freedom of speech and having your own brain and thinking. You are more than welcome to not like people, but he is the president, so everybody just has to kind of deal with that. Watching from the Philippines, what do you think of the no new wars policy? I think that is a fantastic policy. Who could argue with no new wars? No U.S. tax money being wasted, destroying a democracy somewhere, installing a dictator, and then forcing that country to go to war with a country that it could never win against. It makes no sense. I think that we need to pull out of Syria. I don't think that there's any reason for us to be in the Middle East besides Israel. I don't think that we are ever going to give up Israel. Israel is our forward operating base in the region. Like I always say, it is our excuse to be in the Middle East. But I don't think that these forever wars and these wars without U.S. skin in the game are beneficial to the world in any sort of way. And I don't think they're beneficial to the United States. I think we've seen that very clearly through the Ukraine project, through Afghanistan, through Iraq, through what's happening in Syria. I mean, none of it has worked, right? It has been continued failure on the back of continued failure. So I think that is a great policy. I think under Trump, the U.S. economy was very strong. I think that the global relations were much better. We were talking with Russia. We were talking with China, but being stern with China because China is our nearest peer. North Korean relations improved, at least at the beginning until they were tanked. There was no wars in the Middle East going on because of the whole peace through strength. If you want to believe that, it might have also just been the timing of the 2016 to 2020 administration. During that time, there was no incitement of wars necessarily. Maybe there wasn't a war ready to go at that time. So I could be giving credit where it's not necessarily due. But to me, it felt like the Trump 4 years were better than the 4 years under Obama and then the latter 4 years under the Biden administration. So I'm not necessarily a Republican. I think the GOP is horrible. And I'm actually very excited that the MAGA movement is really now the Republican movement. It's not so much the rhinos are gone for the most part. Now it's this sort of new wave Republicanism. And the way that they talk like peace loving hippies. So I'm all about that. I'm all about America first, not America only, but America first. So I think that this was the right move for the United States. Question: Is Ukraine reliant on wheeled vehicles a problem in Zaporozhye? Not very big roles. Yeah, they are. So anytime you're getting weapons or ammunition or people to the front line, they're going to be dependent on wheeled vehicles, unless you have horses and carts or something like that. Still a wheeled vehicle, but it's not like a huge problem because there's not like major logistics positions or major frontline positions that need heavy logistics in the Zaporozhye region. Most of it can be done with a single tracked or wheeled vehicle, rotating a single position, and then getting your whatever you need out of that. But during the muddy season, yes, it does become much more difficult, but it's also much harder to move offensively in the muddy season. So slow logistics doesn't necessarily mean a weakened defense in that exact scenario. Question: Where are the F-16s? They were forgotten about. It was kind of embarrassing. A couple of them were lost. Potentially all of them were lost. The Dutch have delivered new F-16s, so there are some in the country, but they're not talking about them because there's no point in talking about them. They're not doing anything. They're not accomplishing anything. It was a huge waste of, again, U.S. tax money that really did absolutely nothing. The wonder weapons keep getting more expensive and having less of an impact on the overall war. Question: Have you watched any unhinged liberals doing reaction videos of the reaction results? Actually, it seemed pretty good. I really don't think anybody was overly excited. See, in 2016, people were excited about Hillary. The liberals were very excited about Hillary because Hillary was establishment, so she was liked by everybody. Liked by the media, obviously, and Trump was this new, very aggressive, non-traditional, misogynistic, if you would, however they want to frame it. That's how he was. So when that election happened in 2016, first off, the entire demographic, the Democrat demographic was lied to. The polls lied. They were expecting something else. They didn't get it, and they were crushed. So those breakdowns were horrible. Like the world was ending. This time, it's been a lot less significant. I think it happening 8 years ago, everybody was kind of prepared for the polls to not be right. And I don't think anybody was really enthusiastic. I don't think any Democrat was really voting for Kamala because she was Kamala. I think the Democrats voted for Kamala because they're Democrats and they weren't ever going to vote for Trump. Right. And they didn't want Trump in. So it was like never Trumpers versus everybody else. And that's why he swept. And that's why the Republicans now control the Senate, the House, and the White House. So that's pretty impressive. Yes, the Ukrainians are exhausted. They are absolutely exhausted. Finally, I can catch your live show now. Yes, every Wednesday, guys. Every Wednesday, I do a late live stream. Everybody thank Tyler for that. Tyler, thank you so much. This was an awesome idea. I love getting to interact with a new category of my viewing audience. Do you think that defense startups like I don't know how to pronounce that, Anduril, cheap FPV drone manufacturer could be a game changer for the U.S.? Yes, if we decide to actually invest in it. I am unbelievably frustrated with the U.S. military literally watching what future wars look like play out in Ukraine and not adapting the US military immediately to those lessons being learned. The Russians are learning bloody lessons. The Ukrainians are learning bloody lessons. We need to listen to those. We should have every platoon should have an FPV crew, both for reconnaissance and for strike capabilities. We should overinvest in this technology, and it should be everywhere, because it's proven that if you have FPV operators everywhere, an enemy cannot advance, an enemy cannot operate without a constant threat of being struck. These FPVs can be fiber optic, so they can't be interrupted. These FPVs can fly through windows. They can target moving vehicles. It is the future. So yes, I do think it is a game changer, and we should implement it. Will we? Probably not, until thousands of U.S. troops are dying, and then we'll decide, oh, we should probably do something about this. That's usually how things go. Gonna rewind. Join late, good times. Yep, sorry about that, optimistic future. But yeah, I'm sorry that you're not watching live. Hopefully when you get to this point, you're like, awesome, he actually read my comment. Appreciate all of you guys in here too. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I know it's late for some of you, early for some, midday for some. Denny's must be in a shamble. Yeah, I'm sure he is. After the war is over, do you think Russians will send scuba teams to retrieve the Moskva wreckage? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe. I don't really think that that's a priority right now. That ship was so old when it went down. It was the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, but it was a very, very old ship at the time. So, what do you think will be the toughest nut for the Russians to crack next year? Next year, Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, Konstantinivka, and Druskivka, that 4 string of settlements is going to be 2025. So that's going to be the difficult area. Scott believes in QAnon. I don't really know what QAnon is, so I don't really know if I believe in it or not, but probably not. It sounds dumb. I've heard it before, but I've never looked into like what it actually is. Kalibrated. Do you think that North and South Korea will be able to decrease tensions in the near future? No, probably not. I think that this is going to be a hotspot that puts a lot of pressure on the West. It's just a pressure point. Like Ukraine and Georgia are pressure points for Russia. South Korea is a pressure point for the United States that both China and Russia can press at any time and force a reaction from the United States. So no, I do not believe that that's going to slow down. I also don't believe it's going to slow down because I've said this for the entire conflict. North Korea is the biggest winner. They have opened up entirely. They used to be one of the most isolated countries on the planet. I like to always relate them to Cuba. Like everybody always says, communism didn't work in Cuba and South Korea and Venezuela. Yeah, they did. It didn't work there. And I'm not defending communism in any way, but you can't say that something didn't work when the entire time you have the global hegemon putting you under extreme sanctions and pressure, right? That's going to lead your economy to doom, whether you're a capitalist society, a communist society, a socialist society, doesn't matter. So North Korea is the big winner. They are now openly trading. If you guys, I would recommend going and looking at light maps of North Korea. You've always seen the meme where South Korea is like this bright, glowing, and then there's like one little light in North Korea and Pyongyang. That's not reality anymore. They are industrializing incredibly quickly. Like electricity is going now all over the country. So the situation has greatly changed and improved for North Korea with the sanctions that have been leveled on Russia. They now have the ability to get product from all over the world through Russia as their primary trading partner. They also gave the Russians a ton of ammunition, like a absolute ton of ammunition for their conflict. So I'm sure they got an amazing agricultural deal out of it. So the whole early 2000s food insecurity in North Korea sort of idea is also been gone for over a decade, but now it is completely non-existent. So the reality is changing very quick, and I would not expect tensions to decrease. What are you going to do if the wars end? Just this. I'll just talk to you guys. If you still want me to come on here and talk, I'm good at talking. So I'll always just find something to do with this. I like doing this so much. I'll just do podcasts if this ends. Who knows? I'll find something. Kalibrated. What do you think of their psychotic discourse on Latinos and other minorities among American liberals since the election? I think that the reason that is a primary reason why they lost. I think that they're very arrogant. The Democrats, they seem to think that the black vote is always going to be theirs no matter what. They think that men are not going to come out and vote. They think that women are one issue voters, which they kind of are, but I think that this election also proved that abortion is not the not the largest single issue for women, like they always make it out to be. And Latinos, Hispanics and Latinos came out huge. My state, New Mexico, where I'm a registered voter, usually is 65% Democrat. This year, Kamala barely won with 51%. Trump had 45%. So Trump made up huge gains in Hispanic and Latino areas, and them talking about Hispanics and Latinos bad. It's the same sort of like if you're not black, you're not black if you don't vote for Biden or Kamala. Sort of that same idea. I think it's very counterproductive to what they're trying to achieve. Yeah. There is, psychotic discourse. It never ends. What do you think? Oh wait, I already answered that. So no more money to Ukraine after January 20th, 2025. There shouldn't be. There's been no congressional approval for money, so question. During the Soviet era, Russians flew MiGs against Israel during the Arab conflicts. Do you think Russians would do the same thing again with Iran, especially since Iran is supposed to get Russian planes? No, probably not. I think the Russian goal is to prevent a war. So I really don't think you're going to see that as much anymore. It's hard to hide that stuff. Back in the day, nobody could tell who was flying those planes. I mean, you knew that the Russians were helping the North Koreans. You knew that the Russians were helping the Arab countries, but it was never really like the Russians are doing it. They were, but nobody ever accepted it as that, because that would mean a war between Russia and the United States. So there's always a possibility. I think air defense operators are much more likely than pilots, but I think the goal is to prevent a war. Question: Stop wars, says the guy that loves authoritarianism. Who are you talking about? Trump? Bro, I don't get this. Everybody talks about he loves authoritarianism. Why? Because he says he thinks Putin is a good leader. Is that why you think he loves authoritarianism? I don't know where this comes from. Like during his entire 4 years, did he do anything that was overly authoritarian? Like at all? Like the most authoritarian thing you could say was like denying the election results. But I mean, you can just look at the difference in like mail-in ballots this year compared to that year, and the ability for that election to be fraudulent was much higher than this one. You almost saw no complaining about it this year. I don't know where this authoritarianism thing comes from. And if you're talking about me, I don't know. I don't even know what to go on about that. Yeah, the rhinos did jump on the unipolarity or uniparty boat that just sunk. Yes, that is very true. Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala. Well, that's crazy, dude. Do you think the Russians can switch to territorial offensive or just stay attritional? No, they're going to switch. They're going to switch. The Ukrainians are broken. You're already seeing it switch in the south. Look at how much territory they've captured in the south. That is no joke. Like they are moving. It is not attritional warfare in that area of the map anymore. If you were Kim Jong Un's advisor, what would you tell him regarding foreign and economic policy? I I was gonna I was gonna do a really racist like American talking to a Korean when neither the Korean doesn't speak English and I don't speak a lick of Korean. Don't give like super slow. No, what would I say to him? I would say stick as tight as you can with the Russians. Stick with the current Russian leadership is smart. They're not going to screw you over. Stick with them. Invest with them. Put your eggs in that basket and just try to hyper modernize, right? Because you have something that South Korea doesn't have. You have a young population. Um, it, I would overemphasize on building like a family unit in North Korea. Really emphasize on having kids. Go in that direction, and then use that new population to just push them into industry, and then explode. Because North Korea is one of these areas that is ripe for advancement, just like South Korea was. Right? It's kind of just the peninsula is sort of like that, but North Korea is now underneath or out from underneath the boot of the United States. So that's what I would recommend. Be aggressive. Be aggressive with your economic policy. Let's see. Any more questions? Let's see. I got to get caught up a little bit. I'm a little bit behind here. What do I think about Ukraine saying they fought North Koreans in Kursk? I think that they're lying. I haven't seen any evidence. I think that it's Zelensky saying "I told you so." So I think that that's sort of the situation. I don't. I won't believe it until I see evidence. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just waiting. I can't believe you're shilling for dictator Kim. What have I said one time? You guys seem to confuse talking about things with shilling. Did I say Kim Jong Un is great? Did I say North Korea is great? No, I said that they're the big winner of this whole project. Russia is not the biggest winner. The United States is clearly not the biggest winner. Ukraine is the biggest loser. Europe is a huge loser, right? But who benefits from it? How is that shilling? I swear. You guys hear something that you don't like come out of somebody's mouth, and you immediately assume that they are agreeing or they're supporting or something like that. I've been saying the same things about Russia and the Russia-Ukraine war for over 2 years, and I've been called a shill the entire time. And now, guess what? Everybody's saying the same fucking thing that I've been saying for 2 goddamn years. And I was a shill. I was a propagandist when I was just telling you the truth. I hate it. I hate it. It's moronic thinking. Honestly, who cares about North Koreans in Kursk or Ukraine in that matter? You already have the Poles, French, U.S. Scott, have I been to Russia? Once when I was a very, very, very young lad. I would like to go back and I would like to visit. There are a number of places in the world I would love to go back and visit. I would love to go back to Australia and New Zealand. I went there when I was a very young lad. So Mm-mm-mm. Yes, I've seen the meltdowns. They are goofy. Crying about politics is hilarious to me. Scott's on Putin's payroll. Definitely. You got me. You got me. I'm on Putin's payroll. All right, guys. That's where I'm going to wrap it up. An hour and 14 minutes. Thank you so much for Thank you so much for tuning into the Kalibrated episode 113 Wednesday late night live stream. Thank you all so much for your support. Hopefully the news picks back up. It's been slow for like a week now. Elections really just suck the energy out of everything. So I really appreciate you all being in here. Next live stream will be at the normal 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So tune into that. Could be tomorrow if we get a lot of map updates or something big happens. If you go and follow me on my Telegram and Twitter, both of those links you will find in the description of this video. You can be up to date with every single time I go live. Also, go follow me on my Patreon. It is free to follow me there. There will be more content going up there later this week. Thank you all so much. Please have a fantastic week. Be safe. And congratulations on everybody who voted for the winner. And I'm sorry for everybody who voted for the loser. And if you voted for Jill Stein, congratulations. You played yourself. All right, everybody, have a great night. Take care. And I will see you on the next one.